The structure is the same size.
Oh,
How's everybody doing?
Fine.
doing good.
Good.
Is everybody here?
The gang's all here and it's 6 o'clock, so you can fire when ready.
All right. Call the February board meeting together. First thing, I suppose, is the approval of the agenda. We have an agenda up. Does anyone have any additions or subtractions from the agenda?
DT, can you hear me? This is
Yes.
Ron. I just had to comment that I think we can address it in item 6. I talked to Billy and maybe you about it also, that I want to be sure we're clear, the board understands what Billy's official position will be come March the 1st. There's a question whether it's retirement or just resigning, and Melanie and I addressed that. And I think maybe she addressed it with you as well as Billy. So I just want to be sure the rest of the board members understand what's going to have to happen, to be able to fulfill the same benefit type package. So if we can just include that in the discussion on the interim, that would be okay, I think.
Okay. We will include that in item number 6. Okay. Any other changes? Go ahead. Somebody say something. Any other changes? If not, have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Have a motion. Second.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor signify by holding up your hand. I can count those. Where's Glenn? Oh, there we are. All right, everybody. Sorry. Motion passes. The agenda is approved. First thing up is to approve the minutes for January 26th, February 11th, and 12th. Has anybody looked over those, and is there any objections to any of them? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as for January 26th, February 11th, and February the 12th?
Motion.
Have a motion, a second? Have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approve the minutes. Okay. Item number 3.
Okay, I've got pretty much the customary report on this, but there's a couple of things that have finally changed over the last few months. First of all, we have resumed doing disconnects. In fact, we resumed that back in November, and I've got some interesting metrics on that for you to review here in a couple of slides. We've had members of the team test positive. We don't have any new ones in the last couple of weeks, so lobby's still closed, and we've got the team split into 2 families that have limited contact, but I believe it's Melanie's recommendation to perhaps in 2 weeks, middle of March, start trying to bring our normal team, our normal staffing back in, still with the lobby closed, but at least we'll get everybody together where we can be more productive. And still doing most of our interaction through the drive-through window. This graphic shows you some of the financial impact. This is the report on the number of the value of vouchers we've gotten from the Community Relief Fund. January and February are both up there for 21, and you can see they're multiples of higher than what last January and February were. And obviously that's because the pandemic had not really become a thing until March. So you can see that the benevolent funds that we're providing are still making a big impact at the Community Relief Fund because they are dispersing them for electric bill payments regularly. This is something new that I asked Melanie to put together to give you some perspective of the whole history of the pandemic. These are unpaid balances, and all the way over on your left, when this first started, you can see that our unpaid balances were in the $25,000 range. And that was normal, depending on the month of the year, going back years. But as the pandemic took hold, you could see that that number, when we ceased doing non-payment disconnects, it began a rather sharp increase until the end of October when we began to start doing disconnects again. So it went from that $20,000 range up to the $210,000, $220,000 range. So a factor of 10 more. Then as we started doing disconnects, and also we started setting people up on payments. Everybody that was in arrears did not immediately get disconnected. They were set up on a payment plan. And as that payment plan began to work, you can see that the curve inflected in the right direction, or it has for 3 months, and then it's starting to kick up again because here's the reason for that. As people fail to make that obligation, they get disconnected, and then that becomes bad debt. So that's beginning to happen now. And it's going to be interesting to follow this over the next few months and see if it turns back around in the other direction. This is a graphic just talking about those, in effect, loans. Everybody that was in arrears got set up on a payment plan, which really is a loan. And you can see that the loan balance in November was around $160,000, and it has been coming down. In fact, 50 grand or so of that has been recovered. So it's interesting to see how the impact has been on our customers and on our economy, and how it looks like there's a glimmer of hope that as the pandemic begins to come to an end and the economy regains some of its normal resiliency, that the long-term impact on us, I'm saying this with a wishful thought now, may be fairly small. Okay, so that's really all the COVID report, unless you have any questions on that. Would you like me to move on to the next item, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Obviously, one thing clear is that I can't spell replacement. I'm sorry about that. I've looked at this 40 times and I apparently couldn't see it until tonight. Okay, this is a common deal. We've got a unit that is 13 years old that is our unit 4. It's a 2008 F350 quad cab with a gasoline engine. And we, as things evolve, one of the things we've learned through the pandemic is how to work our crews differently, smaller groups, smaller crews. So we don't need that quad cab anymore. And we don't really need a pickup truck. We need a flatbed. And we think we'd like to go with diesel. So we opened bids earlier in February, but only got one bid. It was from Gilly Hyde Auto Group for $50,734. This is the old unit, and apparently the delivery time on these things is so far out that they didn't give us a trade-in value because they didn't know how much more we were going to use it before the new unit came in. So my recommendation is that you let us go ahead and cut a PO for this, for the one good bid. It's less than what we thought it would be, and we can get the delivery time started and probably won't have to pay for it for 6 months or so, as long as it's going to take to get it.
I don't know much about pickup pricing and truck pricing, but it seems to me that's probably in the right range at this time. It's not too far wrong, is it?
No, it's probably $5,000 less than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, I make a motion that we go ahead and authorize Billy to make that PO and get it on the way.
I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a second? All in favor, say aye.
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 Seems to be unanimous. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is the reappointment of cable programming committee members. I told you about Beverly Vance and Terrell Alexander's term expiring. In fact, it expired on February 1. They both, after you all suggested that you'd be willing to reappoint them, agreed to be reappointed and serve another 3-year term. So if that is still your will, a motion to reappoint them would be in order.
I don't have any objection to it. Do we have anybody else who's applied for it?
We had 1 or 2 other names after it was talked about in public at the last meeting. But perhaps I misunderstood you. I thought you said offer it to the existing ones. If I misunderstood, I can back up and give you the names of I think there's at least 2 others that said they'd be willing to serve.
Whatever the pleasure of the board is. From my perspective, I don't know much about it and I haven't looked into it. So if everybody's happy with these people,
I make a motion that we go ahead and appoint Beverly Vance and Terrell Alexander for second terms on the programming committee.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, carries.
Okay, well, the next one is one Ron has talked to you a little bit about, and DT has submitted a couple of motions, and I'll just turn it over to you guys.
All right, I'll go ahead and address my part if I can.
All right.
I'd gotten a call from Melanie, because in the mediation, I think different words were used from talking to Billy. There's questions about whether he retires March the 1st, stays on as a consultant. Not a question about that, but what his true status would be from talking to Melanie. If part of the package was that he would, if he retired as superintendent March the 1st and he stays on as that consultant advisor, but with full pay and benefits. The issue became, and I think nobody discussed it at the mediation, is how does he continue to receive the benefit package that's received by him by now, because it includes some retirement, it includes insurance and some other things. So I think based upon my conversation with Mr. Baker, who was representing the board in that mediation, as well as Mr. Davenport, neither one of them really have a position, long as Billy Ray and the board is happy. So in order from talking to Melanie, and Melanie can chime in here if she wants, that it's better to treat really that he would resign as superintendent, but he's not officially retired from the elected plant board, so that he would continue to receive his benefits. Otherwise, it does mess with his retirement status. So I think just for clarification purposes, I want to be sure the board understands and is agreeable that when they talked in the past about Mr. Walter, when he was talking about resigning March the 1st, that's really just resigning or removing himself as superintendent, but he would still be an employee of the Electric Plant Board with his true retirement date to be that 3 months after that March the 1st or 6 months, whatever it was he chose, which was his choice. And I think Billy's, that's the option he would like. And from I understand, talking to DT, he was good with either option, whatever was going to work best for Billy. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions about that, but there were some benefits that would not be more difficult for Melanie to try to treat him as an independent contractor. We would get a 1099 after March, and I think he's just going to stay on as an employee, but just resign as superintendent.
You want to, unless there's objection, you want to formulate a motion that covers that?
Does anybody got any questions of Melanie, or do they understand how some of those issues would come up as far as his payments and so forth? I take your silence means you don't have any questions. So, I would think if you just had a motion really to ratify or confirm that, the intention behind the mediation was that in order for him to receive his benefits, if he needs to stay on as an employee but resign as superintendent, you guys would approve that interpretation of that mediation agreement. And I think when looking at the attorneys are now passing back and forth various agreements that they were to write up. Mr. Baker's written something up. Mr. Davenport's written something up. Mr. Hughes has written something up that would dismiss TAG from the litigation. They're still passing that back and forth. So, but I know Mr. Davenport's language included just a resignation as opposed to a retirement on March the 1st. I think Mr. Baker's, I believe it said retire. So I'm going to be sure the board understands what his true status would be so that he can continue to receive the benefits that were discussed. So I guess I would ask somebody to make a motion to approve that interpretation I just gave, that he would continue as an employee of the Electric Plant Board, but
I will so move, and I hope Melanie can write that up.
Melanie, you got any questions about that? Or
No, I don't have any. I think you explained it pretty well.
Okay. I think you could summarize that and we make a motion to that effect.
yeah, that is.
Yep.
So if you make the motion, DT.
I have made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The other item that I have sent out, I sent a second copy of based on Ron's requested revision in regard to the Chief Financial Officer. And I sent it out, so you may have it or you may not have it, the second copy, but I will read what is there. And in the event that the superintendent is incapacitated or the position becomes vacant, the chief financial officer shall become acting superintendent until such time that the board acts to replace the chairman.
Not the chairman, the superintendent, you mean?
Yeah, the superintendent. Yeah. Okay. I'll probably send it out again. How about that? All right. I'll read it again. In the event that the superintendent is incapacitated or the position becomes vacant, the chief financial officer shall become the acting superintendent until such time that the board acts to replace the superintendent. Is that right?
I think that would be right, but it would be replace the superintendent, with a more permanent position or even a different interim superintendent until you could look into it further.
Yes. The other part of that is that the CFO or other members of the GEPB staff may consult with Mr. Ray on matters of plant operations so long as he is employed by the GEPB. Any discussion? Hearing none, do I have a second?
You got a second?
Have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, all I have is the kind of the customary report. We'll look at the January metrics on finance, and we'll look at the March fuel cost adjustment, which takes effect March the 1st. Look at the CPD ledger for the new year. And I'll talk to you a little bit about our experiences last week with outages due to the winter storm. So first, the graphic that you're used to seeing by now, over here is January and February. And as you can see, the new year is this light blue line. And we set a record, maybe we tied the previous record for load factor in January. And so far in February, with only a few days left, we're at an all-time high load factor. That means it's been cold the whole month, basically. No up and down stuff. So load factor that high means that our unit cost per kilowatt hour is low. So this is a good thing. The fuel cost adjustment, which takes effect March the 1st, is a slight increase of 0.042 cents. It's been very cold. TVA had to buy more power than they expected to, and that had a little bit of a negative impact on the fuel cost. This is the census that I provide you every month on how many people are on which rate. I think this one, residential, we had about 20 people move from the variable rate over to the fixed. And on the small commercial, no movement at all. It's exactly the same. The CPD ledger started off pretty good. We're $7,000 behind. No, wait a minute. Yeah, no, we're $7,000 to the good on what we're collecting. So we made a good prediction in January, and hopefully we haven't missed it much in February. If we get any more cold weather, we'll give it one more shot for February. Then this is interesting because the weather forecasters gave us so much warning on the expected ice storm. We spent a lot of time in the week before plotting our defense of the system against an ice storm. And I thought we had a really good defense plotted out. We had some help in here. We had different vendors, tree trimmers and all on standby for us. We thought we were in great shape. And then instead of an ice storm, we got a couple of completely different things. First, on Monday night, we had a big building on West Main Street burned down. And when it collapsed, it broke one of our poles. You can see it right there. And also there were some poles going down, or there were some conductors going down this kind of an alley, or maybe it's cross street beside the building. And it made for an interesting 24 hours because the one thing the weather forecasters did get right was that it was going to be exceedingly cold and icy. And so here's kind of the list of how things went down. 5/16, our SCADA system reports that Circuit 837, which serves 259 customers, tripped. And about 20 minutes later, we arrived on the scene and went ahead and opened that circuit and did some switching to reduce the number of people off from 259 down to 59, and isolate the damage, so all this will be dead where the pole and all was broken. By 1:18 in the morning, we completed repairs to all but the customers fed off of these conductors on Cross Street. The fire department wouldn't let us that close to work on that for a while, but at 8:45 the next morning, they gave us permission, and by noon, we had everything restored, except obviously for the building that's not there anymore. So that gave us a really different Monday night and Tuesday morning than what we had planned for. Then on Wednesday, we had quite a different event. Again, I guess it was weather related, but this car was coming down, going north on Highway 90, and somehow lost control and ran right through, hit this pole that was in the ground right here. It looks like it's in the ground over here, but it knocked about a 15-foot section of the pole out, and the butt of the now broken off butt of the pole just sat down. Of course, like the weight of all these conductors forced it down to the ground. It looks like it's still in the ground, but if you notice, look closely at all these telephone cables here, you could reach up and chin yourself on them, so you know something's not right. Unfortunately, this pole had two of our larger circuits on it, and both of them operated. This is several hours later the next day as we were trying to replace the broken pole with the new one and move everything over. But it had, well, what did I do wrong there? There was a more interesting turn of events over here. So same time of day though, this is on Wednesday, 4:55 p.m. SCADA says you had an interruption on two circuits. Then that affected 631 customers in the northern city limits. 5:30 we arrived and kind of triaged it and decided that, well, it's missing 20 feet of pole, but it seems stable. And that was when the freezing rain and all was really setting in and the temperature was at its lowest. So we decided that it was stable enough that no customers were without service. So we let it go during the night. We kept somebody there to watch it, see if it tried to swap ends, but it went through the night so that we were able to wait till 8 a.m. in the morning with daylight, where we could perform the switching to kill the work site and break the outage down to 245 customers. We notified everybody that there was going to be a long outage. It wasn't any surprise to anybody that was going up and down Happy Valley Road that there was a massive event there going on. And before 5 o'clock the next day, they set the new pole, transferred two 12,000 volt circuits over to the new pole, transformers, and turned it over to the phone companies, who then were able to come in and start transferring their stuff to the new pole. So that's how we spent Wednesday night and Thursday. None of it ice storm stuff. So one might say that our planning was for naught, but I think a lot of the planning, the things that we talked about, were in the vendors we made contact with. We wound up using them in quite a different way than we anticipated. I just thought y'all might want to know about that. This is going to be a big financial deal. Of course, this person, commerce at Walmart and all the retail out there was interrupted for several hours. Factories out there, Chihatsu Spring and another one, lost production. And we probably, with our people and our facilities damaged, was probably spent $40,000, $50,000 out there, not counting what the phone companies spent. So the liability on that thing, it could go out of sight. Luckily, none of us is in the insurance business.
And Billy, I want to say, you know, we talk about the team a lot, but last week with the fire, the wreck, I mean, and then working out in those conditions, I mean, that team killed it last week, and they have no idea how much I appreciate them as well as this community.
Thank you for saying that. And also, they did that during a pandemic while trying to keep from ganging up on it as we normally would and get too many people together. So I couldn't be more proud of the way they performed, and nobody got hurt, which is always my number one.
Exactly.
That's great.
The
That's,
only other thing I have is the same thing I've had for over a year now, is to discuss the format of the meeting and see if anybody. I understand from the governor's briefing today, he's gonna, on March the 1st, he's stripping away the color code, red zone, orange, you know. I don't know exactly what that means. Whether we would have the rules governing you all getting together in here would be altered, but I assume it changes something. I just don't know what.
well, it strikes me that until we get clarification on all this, we probably aren't in a position to make any decisions.
Yeah, they still reference that safe at work protocol, you know, so that's got to change. The governor just sort of adopts that with everybody.
Well, with that,
Well, hang on. I got one piece of old business I want to ask a question about, and then just one piece of new business I want to ask a question about. On the old business, on February the 12th, we had asked Frost Brown Todd to submit their final bill. Did we ever receive that?
no ma'am.
And today is the 23rd. Okay. Had we had any billing from them whatsoever?
Yes, but we've only gotten one invoice, and that covered through December the 31st.
And how much was that one invoice?
Close to $9,000.
And that covered through December. And what was the date that they were officially hired by the board?
When did we meet in December? That was the 22nd. Yeah.
Wow. From 22nd to the 31st. Ooh, all righty. I just had to know those figures, and we'll be very interested to know what a final bill, if we can ever get one. So anyway, I just wanted to ask about that. And
Libby, while you're on that, I can check. I don't think I've seen any, or I don't know if any orders have been issued in the federal case that dismissed it yet. So I can check on that. You know what?
okay, please. Well, I know TVA got their notification, so they actually got theirs the afternoon of the 12th. So
They probably filed something, but I don't know if the judge has entered the order. So I'll follow. If
okay, I appreciate
it's
that.
officially been entered.
And then one other thing, so I mean, we know that starting March 1st, Melanie is going to be interim superintendent. However, you gentlemen need to think about the fact that Billy will only have 3, possibly 6 months left with us after that. So it is kind of a time is of the essence thing to start a search for a new superintendent, whether it be in-house or out. But I think it would probably be appropriate if we set up a committee of a couple of people to maybe start that process, or we could even talk about a steering committee where that there is nobody involved with the board, but you know, kind of like the idea board did. They did the steering committee for the economic development director. And they did an excellent job when they found Maureen. So, I mean, you know, just something for you gentlemen to consider. We need to kind of get the ball rolling.
We have a couple of things here. One is there are recruiters, and I've asked one out of Atlanta to send us a proposal, and they'll be sending them. And we also have the option of doing advertising, but it will take a while to get this done, so we find somebody that's suitable to everybody.
Yeah, it will. I just don't think we need to sit around and wait.
We're not gonna wait, but
Proactive in that. Now,
Yeah.
as far as the recruitment agency, I'll look forward to seeing a proposal, but a typical recruitment agency wants 15 to 20% of that person's first year salary. So, I
they
mean, I
probably
don't,
won't, and nowadays they probably want more than that.
well, they
We'll
probably
have to look at the proposals.
We
There's
will.
several, there's more than one agency that does this, but they can submit proposals and we can advertise in trade journals and things like that. And
So, what about maybe a committee of two to possibly get that process started?
let's see what we get coming in and then we'll decide how to do that, I think. I don't think we have to do that yet.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just think there's been enough money wasted over the past year
I
on.
think all four of us need to participate in that.
And
committee.
well, I personally kind of like the steering committee, like the idea board did. That way there's no bias from any board members or anything. It is,
We are the board. We get to be biased.
no, we don't get to be biased. We should be fair, open-minded, and informed. But anyway, that was just my suggestion to you, gentlemen. You can do with it what you will.
You go take one with it. I got it.
All right. Okay. Is that it? Did we pass the last motions? We're done.
Well, we just been on reports, the last.
Okay. So all the motions, all the business is conducted then. Okay.
Yes, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Everybody gone? Libby, if you're still on there, I'll check on that and send us something to email to everybody on that order.